ladies and gentlemen, I am the Victorian Cowboy, and welcome. This is the next book in the series, The Witcher by Andrzej Sapkowski. This is A Time of Contempt. As you can see, my cover is different than the last one. I actually got this book before I got The Blood of Elves, but I managed to read them in the right order, so that's nice. We are discussing chapter 1 of this today. It's our first look at this second book in the series. And so far I've got to say it's been good. Like, the whole of chapter 1 I've really enjoyed, and I like the frame narrative that that Andrzej Sapkowski used for this, with Applegat, the royal messenger. I feel that was a really good use of the narrative. Just having him come into contact with all these people on the road and these places where Ciri and Yennefer and Geralt have all been. And then it also allows for that kind of intrigue of the politics without actually having to sit and listen to a whole Council of Elrond style chapter about the politics. Plus, I think the other nice thing about this is we get more of Geralt's perspective, which is nice. If you look at the comments in the last video, there was a brief discussion about not having enough from Geralt's perspective in the last book, because, like, for me, reading the short stories, that's what really drew me in. I find he has a really interesting way of viewing things, and it's a lens that you don't normally see the world viewed from, just with that sense of morality, being the anachronistic Witcher, as it were, versus what's his name, Codringer, and his modern Witcher, which is essentially a seedy underworld lawyer that you'd find in, like, Better Call Saul, but he's effective. That whole actual bit with Codringer and Fen, I actually really enjoyed seeing how some of these information getters worked for Geralt, and work in this world where you've got all sorts of creatures and magic and whatnot, and how these guys literally are going through the world with the sole intent of making as much money as possible. Though it appears Codringer is dying of some sort of sickness, he doesn't leave his office much, and just the fact that he kept coughing into his handkerchief and looking at it makes one wonder about how much longer he has left on this mortal coil. And then Fen, the cripple, with his repeating crossbow that he had there, and just being the bookworm. It was a different side of this world that you don't often see, because most of what we see is Geralt and Dandelion traveling to bars and getting in fights, which we do get to see Geralt take on those. I mean, we don't see it, we get to hear him take on the three gents, and from Applegat's perspective, it really, I felt, worked well as a storytelling technique. Also, just Geralt's words that he wanted passed on to anybody else that might have been looking for him. That the white wolf is coming and is willing to bite, and I thought that was really useful. Also, though, war is brewing, and war is going to break out, because even though Applegat had several messages saying, let's not do this, we've got problems with this, his last message explaining why there was a problem, the fact that there's an army amassing there from Nilfgaard, and that they're just looking for an excuse to engage, sadly dies with him, because there's no other way to get that message through, and nobody's trusting the sorcerers anymore to relay messages, and the sorcerers are actually convening their own conference, and Ciri's going to be there, and Geralt won't permit them to actually put someone in Ciri's place, like Codringer suggested, which I can understand. You wouldn't want to be responsible for the death of an innocent person. Geralt, I think, really fears that eventually he'll kill someone who was innocent, because for the most part he doesn't kill innocent people or things. They're creatures that are causing havoc, and even if they don't mean harm, so let's face it, you've got a creature like the Manticore he kills in this, that is sitting there eating. It doesn't necessarily mean harm, but it is causing more harm than good, just by existing where it does. So like, there's that code that he lives by, and the fact that he won't work for Codringer and Fen, because that type of work is distasteful. Though I have to say, the exchange about the throwing stars and how Geralt stood there and let Codringer miss, I felt that was entertaining. And if it showed the characters where Codringer wasn't going to be responsible for killing someone, but Geralt wasn't going to just, you know, like, he knew Codringer wouldn't do it. He called his bluff, which I feel was interesting and shows insight into what Geralt knows about people in this world. We also get to see Dijkstra in this. Dijkstra relays the message and can hear the messages meant only for the king. So that is beneficial. And we get a description of the weapons that the Scoia'tael use, even though they're referred to more as the squirrels than the Scoia'tael. But how it bores in like a screw and just creates such havoc in the body. Because it's not like a hollow point bullet which spreads out, but this one, the way it drills in, means that it's just going as deep as possible, no matter how far out it is. Because as it hits, it starts rotating, and it's just the idea behind who creates these weapons and what they're meant to do. Like, you've got people who sit around and think about the best ways to kill others, which is an interesting concept when you think about weapon design and combat. Because everything that gets used in combat, somebody has to sit and think about. And well, yes, in fantasy and supernatural story and sci-fi stories, people think about really cool things that may not actually exist. It still just should give people pause to think about. We're thinking about and talking about things that do bring devastation. So, it was just interesting. And poor Applegat, who I actually had grown to like because he had an interesting perspective and an interesting job, was dead before he hit the ground. So, we know war is coming. We know there's a council of wizards and witches meeting. And we know Geralt doesn't take kindly to advice of leave well enough alone. So there are several different challenges that Geralt will be facing to keep Ciri safe, and Yennefer will be facing them too. So I'm curious as to when Geralt will actually figure out who's hunting Ciri to begin with. Also, we get the first mentions of the Wild Hunt, which I'm not sure how big a role they'll play. I know in The Witcher 3, the video game, they play a major role as they're hunting Ciri. So I've actually put my playing of the video game on hold until I finish the book series, or until I at least get further into it, because I don't want to have things spoiled for me either way. But I'd rather read the books and learn about it rather than play the game and learn about it. What's nice though is I have an image for some of the characters from the game that I think works very well for the books. Though some of the characters like Codringer and Fen haven't been mentioned yet, so I'm really curious if they'll actually show up in the game. Because I find that whole seedy underworld and like the trade deals going on, like just the exchange of money for information and whatnot, that's a really interesting facet of this world that hasn't been addressed in either the short stories or the first novel. Though apparently Reince from the first novel is probably going to end up dead, because Codring is going to see to that. So that's one less problem they'll have, seeing as Geralt didn't get to finish him off. Granted, Philippa saved him from killing himself off, so that's kind of a good thing, but Philippa, as it seems, would know who is his handler, because that's some pretty serious magic coming that way. And so it'll be important to see just whose side all these people are on. On the bright side, at least for now, besides Dijkstra, most people think that Ciri's dead, but Dijkstra is piecing it together as to what's going on, what with the Witcher killing the 3 men, yet the girl that they were hunting and whatnot is supposedly dead, so Geralt may have shot himself in the foot with that. Conversely, those 3 might have caught up with Yennefer and Ciri, and had they caught up and escaped, even if they hadn't killed Ciri, that would have caused other problems. So it's kind of a no-win situation right now for them. Granted, we don't get to see Geralt really talk about Yennefer in this. It's not even clear if they've actually managed to meet up while they were on the road or not. I don't believe they have. I believe Geralt just knows where they're going. Even Codringer knows where they're going. So I'm sure some message was exchanged, but I don't believe they've managed to meet up. Granted, we do realize that all of them know that Geralt is not dead, even though somebody thinks he is, because the wizards were talking about that, or at least trying to figure out how to get Geralt to not be in the picture. Beyond that, I feel like for the most part, we've got a good setup for this book. I'm really engaged with it after this first chapter. I'm looking forward to seeing what else gets addressed in it, because I feel there's, like, just the mythos of The Witcher is really rich, and as we learn more about magic, and as we learn more about Ciri's training, and as we learn more about what the witches are capable of, and just as we delve deeper into Geralt's psyche and like the sorcerers and this political intrigue and this, war that's about to break out, because I know there are 5 books in the series, I know there's quite a bit left for us, but I'm also I'm wondering how much we're going to hit in just this one novel. So I'm looking forward to it. For those of you following along at home, for those of you who have read it, please feel free to comment with your thoughts. And I look forward to making more of these videos. Hopefully the next one will be out next week. I've been trying to set aside some time every day when I get home to do some reading, because the chapters, there are only 7 chapters, but it's 333 pages, so that's about 40 to 50 pages a chapter. But we'll get through it, much like we did the last one. It's great to have a reason to read again. It's great to be in a book series I really enjoy, and I look forward to hearing your comments. So thank you for joining us. Stay tuned for more insights and just thoughts and ideas about the books and the issues it brings up. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of our video. We do hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, give us a like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you thought, and as always, have a good one.